for the
How are you, sir?
afternoon.
Good to see you. Hi, how are you?
We have with us for our final hearing the Metro Nashville Police Department. We have our Chief, Steve Anderson, with Mr. Samir Mehik, the Finance Manager, and Ms. Kathy Kirkham, the Administrative Services Officer for the Police Department. And Chief, before you begin your presentation, are you satisfied with the Mayor's proposal for your department?
We are.
I'm sorry, go.
I'm sorry, we are.
Thank you, Chief. You can continue with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Matthews and Chair Lady Bennett, and all the ladies and gentlemen of the council for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Before we start, I just need to express my gratitude for your support. We can't have an effective police department, obviously, without the support of the council, so thank you very much. We also know that we can't be effective without the support of this community. And with that respect, we work very hard to maintain the confidence of the public. Rarely a night goes by that some member of our department is not meeting with a neighborhood watch group, a community group, or a business group to talk about safety and improving the quality of life. When I look across this room, I know that I've seen each and every one of you at one of those meetings. So thank you for being there. As you've seen at these meetings, Nashvillians all across this county are actively engaged with our officers in the programs that impact Nashville in a way that ties every neighborhood together as one city. We ended 2012 supporting 561 community groups and business groups. This is the highest number ever. Last year, members of your police department attended 1,880 meetings with citizens, neighborhood groups all across Nashville. If you're doing the math, that's more than 5 meetings per day, every day of the year. The credit for our success goes basically to our precinct commanders. Commanders, would you stand up back there? Sebastian Gordine, the Madison Precinct, Michelle Donegan, the Hermitage Precinct, Paul Trickey, South Precinct, Marlene Pardue, West Precinct, Terrence Graves, North Precinct, Jason Reinbold, Central Precinct, David Imhoff, East Precinct. If you don't know those commanders and you don't have their cell number in your cell phone, I need to know about that. They are the people that make this city public safety possible. I often say that the only reason I exist is to make sure those commanders have what they need to service your neighborhoods. Also with us back there, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have Randy Hickerson, Captain, Warrants Division, Rita Baker for Administrative Services, Captain Chris Taylor, who oversees the Park Police, Dahana Jones, Special Operations, and Carl Roller, the Identification Division. The partnerships that the commanders and the men and women that work under their command form in communities all through Davidson County are essential to keeping crime in check, and just as important, working together with those communities on quality of life and issues. We're happy to report that in 2012, Part 1 crimes, that's the FBI's category for serious offenses, declined here in Davidson County 6.9%. This year, first four months of this year, we're seeing a 4.6 decrease. Turning directly to the budget before us, we take our commitment to financial responsibility very seriously. I believe that Mayor Dean has proposed a budget that continues to make public safety a priority and will allow us to build on our successes without losing any ground. The proposed the proposed $2.8 million increase that you have before you will provide for a number of items. The opening of the DNA crime laboratory in January of 2014. The bridging of the gap in the funding for the federal COPS grants, those 50 officers that we hired that we need 3 more months to pay them for the rest of this year. The coverage of additional special events where we're using officers that are off duty to avoid taking officers out of the neighborhoods to staff those special events all across Nashville. and the required and mandated overhaul of our helicopters. We're certainly very excited that the crime lab is just months away. Our requested funding will allow for supplies to start that lab and to make sure that all the testing equipment is maintained to standards. We'll also be staffing the scientist positions over the next year. We've been very careful not to staff them. We have a management team in place, but over the next year, we'll be looking for the scientists that will actually run the actual test, and we'll be bringing them on toward the end of this year so that they'll be ready to start in January. Certainly having our own crime laboratory is going to be an extreme asset to this department, to the patrol officers out there on the street, to the detectives solving crimes. It's going to be part of the teamwork, especially the DNA component. As to the police department, I can't tell you how proud I am of the men and women that are out there working hard every day. The proactive work is up. That's the type of work that directly impacts crime. They're out there every day working very hard for you. I'm also very glad that Mayor Dean's administration has recommended that the pay step increases proceed in July as scheduled. Our employees deserve to be compensated for the hard work that they do. We're going to make this work. The salary increments will need to be funded through individual departmental budgets. This means that the police department will need to institute cost savings that will come from various areas in the department, but for the most part through attrition and through the delaying of the filling of vacancies. This will be difficult, but each and every one of us, and especially everybody out there on the street, is dedicated to making this work. Again, I want to thank the council for their support. The future of this police department and the future of Nashville is very bright. I think I heard somebody say that our best days are still ahead, and I believe that. With Mr. Chairman, Lady Chairman, I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Council Lady Moore.
Thank you, Chair. And Chief, I do appreciate, Anderson, what you do, because when there is a meeting in my area, you are there along with your commanders and also the other officers that are in the District 17 or surrounding area, and I do appreciate that. Again, I'm going to ask, I'm looking at the budget book, page E80. Again, I'm always interested in behavioral health services and youth services. And how, my question is that how mobile are you all with youth services? Do the youth have to come to you all when they go through juvenile court? Do they come to you for any kind of special services, or do juvenile court handle that? I mean, how do you all collaborate with that? Because I know that sometimes if they have problems at school, they come directly to you. You know, how is that handled now?
All of the above. In our youth services division, we have basically two components, an investigative team and a preventive team. And then we also have counselors within the youth services division, and they work hand in hand with the juvenile court. So some of the less serious cases are referred to us with both the juveniles and their parents. And then those that need more attention are on to juvenile court.
Okay. And my second question is, I do appreciate the fact that you asked your commanders to stand up, because I know that Commander Pardue and Commander Trickery, they have those community meetings that keep us abreast of what's going on, and also with Sergeant Smith, I'm trying to remember their names, and Sergeant Chick. It's so hard to pronounce these names. They do an awesome job in my community, and I'm hoping the same would be for Midtown Hills Police Precinct.
It will be exactly the same.
I had to get that plug in there.
I often say that it's not important that you know who I am, but you need to know your precinct commander.
Yes.
And you need to know the community coordinator at your precinct.
And I would like to know more about your youth services. If you could get some information, who's the person that deals with that? Because I would like for that person to come to one of my community meetings to let people know that you all are providing that service.
Certainly, Captain Gordon Howie is in charge of the youth services division, and he will be anywhere that you need him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Moore. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chief. Appreciate you being here. And I certainly appreciate, on speaking on behalf of the Madison community, we certainly love the precinct being there every night. As a matter of fact, I'll be utilizing your facility here in about 30 minutes for a neighborhood meeting. They all give accolades to the amount of additional police presence in the Madison community, and we continuously hear that. We've heard that at all of our meetings, and it goes on. And you've been out there now for over a year. The DNA lab, I understand. We all know that's going to be a tremendous cost because scientists aren't cheap. The equipment isn't cheap, and to be certified. This is something as I mentioned last year. I know it's not a big issue, but when you get up and running and are providing testing, DNA testing, and you maybe expand through the where you can assist other departments. Is this plausible to have to charge some sort of fee for the services that we use? I mean, that we provide for them. I know we mentioned this before, discussed it, and is that something possible? Or I know it's down the road, but something to offset some of the cost. It may not be much, but as the DNA lab continues to get going and the credibility of the lab expands and improves, and the scientists become more experienced, we could certainly use the revenue if possible.
Yes. And that's certainly something that we would look into. Obviously, we want to get up and running. We want to get accredited. We want to be up to national standards. We want to be a proven product. But at that point, that's something that we could look into, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Pridemore. Councilman Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Are you sure?
Yes,
okay, just
I'm
make sure. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, Chief. Just a couple things. I first, of course, want to brag on my East Nashville and my Madison precincts. The commanders and the sergeants there have been doing an amazing job. We're always informed of what's going on, like the councilman said. I know we're way down in East Nashville on crime this year, so we're just really thankful for these things. And of course, the Madison precinct, just cutting those response times down, I've heard from a lot of folks, has been huge. So we appreciate that. When you may have said, I didn't know if you said an exact date. When exactly is the DNA and the crime lab going to be open? And do you anticipate a real significant cut down of solving crime, the time it takes, I guess, to solving crimes? I mean, how significant is this going to be once we have that up and running? I know we always are waiting on TBI and that sort of thing, or however we're doing it now. When exactly we're going to be open, and what do you anticipate?
We're shooting for January. We think the building will be complete, and then obviously we move in, we get the lab set up, and then we start through the accreditation process. But just as an example, roughly I ask our people in criminal investigations, and we're doing like 30 to 35 tests, DNA type testing through the TBI. The TBI does a wonderful job, but we're one of 95 counties, and there is a screening process. Actually, the district attorney for the judicial district has to write a letter requesting it. So basically, it's restricted to people crimes, homicides, sex crimes, and so forth. Occasionally, a property crime. And that's just the reality. That's all they can do. They do very, very good work, and they're going to be our partner as we go forward. But we think that we can do up to 1,000 as we get up and running. So that drives it down to property crimes. So just using as an example, burglary. When you left this room tonight, you will leave DNA in this room. So the same way with the burglar. So we know, and I think one of the TV stations is running a series on a burglar right now who is owned up to many, 50 or 60 burglaries. So we know that occurs. Some of our detectives, as they apprehend a burglar, sometimes take them around to show them houses. Did you break into this one, this one, this one? Sometimes there's so many they can't remember which one. So stopping that process toward the front end, one, saves a lot of additional burglaries to get that person off the street right then, maybe get them back on the straight and narrow. So it's hard to quantify, but we think it will make a huge difference. I compare this, DNA is relatively new. It was only invented, so to speak, back in the 70s. The process is, the testing is continuing to improve, and so While it takes a while now, there'll be a time we can get overnight testing. So again, hard to quantify, but I often say that a police department not actively pursuing DNA evidence 10 years from now would be like a police department today that ignored fingerprints. So that's where we want to be.
Somewhat related, I guess. So there'll be a lot of tagging relational things between crimes, and you'll be able to, I guess, tag a crime to, if you caught them at another place or there was DNA left somewhere else. Do you feel like you have the technology needs, I guess, going forward with this, as your server space is going to need to expand, you're going to need to just kind of relationally tag all this evidence and crimes?
We think we have what we need today and going forward for the next few years. And obviously, as technology improves, we will need to expand our equipment and our expertise and our resources. But and then a lot of the DNA testing is going to depend on the data bank. As again, DNA is relatively new, but most states, including Tennessee, demand DNA samples, cheek swabs, taken with a simple swab inside the cheek on arrest for certain selected crimes. So as that data bank grows nationally, then the ability to solve crimes using DNA will grow. We get now even what we call reverse hits. A crime committed last year that we have DNA that someone gets arrested in another state this year, and their DNA was connected and locked back to our case.
Great. Well, thank you so much again for the presentation, and thank you to, I just want to reiterate the commanders and the sergeants, just always being there and always so responsive when we need something. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Well, it's almost like science fiction, but I think you remember one of the noted case here, the so-called wooded rapist. One of the cases that he was tied to, he picked up a simple tool, the adjustment wrench for a chainsaw, and used it as a pry bar and left it. His DNA was left on that pry bar, and that's what connected him to that particular crime. So if you've been there, you've left DNA.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I really appreciate you because of the fact that, I go out in a lot of areas and the chief is always in the community, and I really appreciate having a chief that's accessible to the community. I was looking at this and it's amazing, in my mind, I'm thinking the Crime Lab's DNA is, this huge big building with all this equipment in it. And then I look at this and you're saying the Crime Laboratory is about $1 million for 3 FTEs on page E81.
Could you look at that? Let us see what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, some of our expense is in your budget.
In the budget book, yeah.
And some of it is for FTEs, for hiring person, then some of it is for equipment, and some of that is through the capital budget.
Right. Well, I'm saying that if you can do, it appears you can do all this with 3 FTEs. It's really remarkable.
Those are additions. Those are additions.
Now, okay, so what is estimate budget to operate that, to fund that lab as it stands now? How much money is it going to take to do that?
I'm told that when we're fully staffed, it'll be about 3.8 million.
3.8, and yes. How many FTEs would that be?
That'll be around 30.
That's still a good scenario.
We're fully staffed.
And I looked at this before. You got about $834,000 to Madison precinct because you're going to lose some of the cops in the grant. Is that correct?
Well, what that does is bridge the gap. The funding for the federal grant ran out, and so that's to pick up the rest of the year.
Okay. Well, that's remarkable. I looked at this.
And keep in mind, you funded part of it last year, and that's to pick it up for this year.
Pick it up this year.
Yes,
well, I think you're doing a remarkable job. When I looked at these numbers, I was thinking, like I said, I'm thinking about this huge big lab, and I'm saying, how's he going to do that with just this right here? And that's just part of what you already got.
Yes, sir. And we're squeezing every dollar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Hunt. Seeing no other council members in queue, Councilman Party, you were in queue. Did you want to make a comment? Councilman Stein.
Yeah, I just want to thank the department for helping us keep Councilman Pardue in line for the last sort of hour or so. It's been a real help.
Well, now, we did that for about 30 years, and we're turning him over to you now.
Councilman Tiger.
Doug did want to ask what was for dinner tonight.
And Councilor Berry.
And one final comment. Charlie just informed me that I'm swimming in Tim's DNA as I'm sitting here. So that's a visual I'll just leave you all with.
Thank you, Councilor Berry, and thank you, Chief Anderson and company, for your service to our city.
Thank
We're
you very
adjourned.
much.